Evening. We're commencing calling into session, rather, the Zoning Hearing Board meeting, January 19th, 2026. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we proceed to considering any applications, we'll begin with some reorganization business. I'd also like to welcome Karen Bramblett to the board. You may know Ms. Bramblett. She was a council member for 8 years, and at the last part of her term, she was the chair of council. So we're very happy to have her continuing her service on the Zoning Hearing Board.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first meeting of the year for the Zoning Hearing Board, so we need to reorganize. The first order of business will be to accept nominations for the position of chairman of the Zoning Hearing Board for 2026. Would somebody like to make a nomination?
I nominate Brian Daly.
Nomination of Brian Daly. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor of that nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next item is, well, if you want to do it, yeah, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Mr. Vince Frangiosa as Vice Chairman.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the board? Any other nominations? No? Call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And motion passes 4-0. Mr. Frangiosa will be the Vice Chair for 2026. The next item is to appoint a solicitor for 2026. If the board is of a mind with our appreciation, it will be a motion to appoint the law firm of Kilkenny LLC as solicitor to the Zoning Hearing Board for 2026.
I second that motion.
We'll
make a motion to appoint.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, board. Appreciate it. And finally, we need a motion to appoint a court reporter. Again, if the board is of a mind, it would be a motion to appoint Paula Mazzaros for 2026 to serve as the board's court reporter.
I move to appoint Ms. Mazzaros as our court reporter for 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. And we are organized.
All right. Off to the races, so to speak.
Off to the races.
Okay, the first of the applications we'll consider is Mr. Kevin Collins for variance to allow a fence over 2 feet in what is deemed a front yard setback at 464 Fairfield Road in the C Residential Zoning District. Is Mr. Collins here? Yes, sir. Please come forward, Mr. Collins, and be sworn in.
Kevin Collins. I do.
Okay, Mr. Collins, can you tell us what you're looking to do, please?
Yeah, sure. Just bought a property in August on 464 Fairfield. There's an existing fence that's in severe disrepair, and I'm looking to replace it.
Exhibits or anything other than this diagram you'd like to show, or do you want to just work from that?
No, I think we can look at the diagram, and that should have everything we need.
Okay, that's
There's a couple pages as well that might, if
Okay,
there's any
that's-
other questions.
that's acceptable. We can have any questions from the board. Ms. Bramblett?
Is the new fence going to be any taller than the existing fence?
So the existing is chain link around one side, and then an old privacy fence. It's probably been there for about 30 years. So this will be black aluminum, kind of a nicer fence. So it's in sections, it will indeed be higher than the existing. Yep.
And the neighbors on either side, the church and then the residents on either side have no objections?
None, no.
And the driveway that you show in your diagram, that's an existing driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Higgins?
No questions.
Mr. Frangiosa?
Is this for safety?
Yeah, for security purposes, for the rear of my home, and I also have a tool shed back there, and also, again, to kind of just aesthetically remove the old fence, which is getting pretty old.
Are you, how many feet off the sidewalk on Jefferson will the fence be?
I believe it's 18 to the center. I haven't taken measurements. It's 18 to the center of Jefferson, so I haven't taken measurements from the sidewalk over to the fence. I can certainly get you that.
That would be good to know. It's not going to extend, though, to the front of the house, right? It's all...
No, these plans, which were a different plan, I actually removed it from the side of the house to make it a little bit more palatable for the committee here. It'll just be the rear of the home that's fenced in.
It looks like you're mixing two styles of fence.
There's one, so there's a cellar door, kind of an old house double cellar door. So there's a small 6-foot section of privacy fence that's going in just for aesthetics and to kind of provide some, it's a twin home, so it'll provide some separation with the neighbor. Right. The rest of it is you can see right through it, black aluminum.
So it's going to, that would be sort of it would be a border, in a sense, between
the two cellar doors on the
okay.
twin house.
Okay.
Yeah, just in that one little section, it'll just be one panel of the different material.
The rest of it's going to be 54-inch
Correct.
black aluminum picket.
That's right.
Okay. I have no further questions then. Do you have, Mr. Sander? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was reading the application. I was trying to piece it together.
Sure.
Most of this is going to be the 54-inch, which is 4.5 feet high.
Correct.
Black, 3-rail style aluminum fence.
That's right.
That's going to be the majority of it.
Yes.
But then there was one 7 linear foot piece of fence that's going to be 6 feet high.
That's between the cellar doors that we were just discussing.
And that's a white PVC privacy fence.
Correct.
Okay, so that's between the cellar.
That's between the cellar doors.
Cellar doors.
Yep.
Okay, I see it. It's right at the back of the house
little,
on the plan.
separation between the two cellar doors at the twin house.
Mr. Collins' property is right on the corner. Is it on the corner? He has a twin.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see it's a twin home. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering what the respective amounts of...
That part isn't the yard. It's actually the separation of the two cellar door entrances on the twin homes.
Are the measurements on the contractor's quote or estimate correct? I assume you're talking about 122 linear feet of the black aluminum and 7 linear feet of the...
Yeah, it's kind of the PVC material.
PVC.
That's correct. Yep.
Right. Okay. Okay. And you have one 10-foot double gate and 2 4-foot single gates.
That's right.
And they're in the black aluminum area. There's no gate in the 7-foot PVC area.
No.
Okay. All right. I've got it clear in my head. Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Rowe, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sander, by the way.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the applicant, if the board grants relief, would you be willing to get the approval of the township engineer for site distance, if there's any site distance concerns at the intersection, which is usually just what we do on double frontage fences, to make sure that nobody coming around that intersection will have any problem seeing
You're
cars.
certainly welcome to take a look. It's well past the intersection itself.
Okay.
Yeah, because
right.
this is just the rear of the home. So.
We'll let that go.
Yeah, if it's going to the back. Yeah.
Okay. We'll let that go. Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, can we, would anyone make a motion on this application?
Make a motion to approve the application for variance.
Thank you, Mr. Frangiosa. Take a vote. Ms. Bramblett?
In favor?
Mr. Higgins? In favor. Mr. Frangiosa? In favor. The chair votes in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Yep.
Next application. For a special exception, to convert the hotel from hotel use to a multiple dwelling at the 640 Fountain Drive, Plymouth meeting in a planned
Great, thank you.
office park zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we get started, I'd like to mark some exhibits for the record. Exhibit B1 will be the proof of publication of notice of this evening's hearing that appeared in the Times Herald and the Times Herald Digital on January 2nd and January 9th, 2026. And also the certification of posting of the property will be Exhibit B2. We'll also mark the application and all of its exhibits as Exhibit B3. And we've just been handed a packet of applicants' exhibits, so we'll identify them as we go along. Mr. Lewis is here representing the applicant. Mr. Lewis.
It's an applicant need to...
Yes, as he calls each witness,
Okay,
I
that's
assume
fine.
we'll swear them in.
Sounds
Yep.
good, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart, representing the applicant. I apologize. I was under the weather over the weekend. I will do my best to keep my voice up. I represent the owner of the property identified as 640 Fountain Road. With me this evening is Tony Ray over my right shoulder, who is a representative of the owner, as well as to my left is Matt Hammond from Traffic Planning and Design, our traffic engineer. Before you this evening is an application for a special exception in accordance with Section 3200.F to allow the conversion of the former Doubletree, now vacant hotel, to multifamily residential. As is my practice, I've handed to the board some pre-marked exhibit packages. You can tell my assistant was not in. They are not nicely bound. Instead, they were put together by me. She does a much better job than I do. But if the board will permit me a few minutes, I'd like to identify those exhibits and in doing so, provide some background and summarize the application. At that point, I'll plan to call two witnesses, Mr. Matt Hammond and Mr. Tony Ray, and I would ask the board to allow me a few moments at the conclusion of the testimony and or public comment to just summarize the law applicable to this matter. So if that's acceptable, I'll get right to it.
Mr. Lewis, let me ask, is there anyone here who wishes to become a party to this matter, which means that they want to participate in the hearing, call witnesses, cross-examine witnesses, and possibly appeal a decision with which they don't agree? Is there anybody here who wishes party status? Okay, seeing no response, we'll proceed.
Great. Thank you. So getting to the exhibits, applicant's Exhibit A1 is a copy of the deed to the property, vesting title in the property to KHPLY MTG LLC. Applicant's Exhibit A2 is a copy of the time-stamped application that brings us here this evening. As I noted, we're seeking a special exception in accordance with Section 3200.E. I've been in front of this board, bless you. I've been in front of this board enough to know that you have a pretty solid foundation to know the difference between a special exception and a variance. But I think it always merits a refresher, and particularly for any members of the audience. Was expecting a few more possibly tonight that may not know. I think it just warrants a moment to discuss. The famous and oft repeated quote is that a special exception is neither special nor an exception. It's an expressly permitted use. It is not to be seen as a deviation from the ordinance, and it's certainly not akin to a variance. A special exception is a legislative determination that a particular use is appropriate, and unless demonstrated otherwise by objectors, it's presumed that the use is consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare. Most importantly, an applicant for a special exception bears the burden of establishing compliance with any objective criteria for such use that are in the code. Here, other than establishing that the property is located in the planned office campus district, there are no objective criteria for this special exception. Once an applicant establishes that the proposed special exception use complies with those objective criteria, the burden then shifts to any objectors to demonstrate that there are impacts associated with the use that exceed those that would normally be expected from such a use. Objector's burden is a heavy one and requires specific, non-speculative evidence. Objectors must establish through credible fact-based testimony, not simply opinions or bald assertions, that the proposed use will be more detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare than would normally be expected from the same use. As I stated, I'll return a little bit when we're done to the controlling law once we're done some of the testimony, because this is a unique situation. I know it's one that this board, fortunately or unfortunately, has faced recently with respect to this specific language, but I'll do a little bit more on that at the very end. Next in the exhibit package in front of you is applicant's exhibit A3. This is an aerial image of the property. I have done a blown-up copy of that as well on one of the boards to my right. So the furthest to the left is that aerial image. Applicant's exhibit A4 is a series of street view images of the property. I've included one of those on the center board in front of you. And applicant's exhibit A5 is a survey plan of the property, which I have included on a board closest to me. I'll pause there for a moment. The property itself is just, and on the screen behind you is also the survey plan. The property itself is just shy of about 8 acres, sandwiched between Hickory Road, Fountain Road, and the Northeast Extension. The property is located in the planned office campus district. I think the board can take judicial notice of the township's zoning map to establish that fact. And it was developed about 30 years ago as an all-suite style extended stay hotel, which for many years operated as a DoubleTree. The hotel consists of 253 all-suites rooms intended for extended stay travelers. The first floor of the building is primarily amenity and common space. I believe there's an indoor pool, there's conference space, there's meeting rooms, restaurant space, things of that nature. The building itself is 6 stories with a footprint of about 38,000 square feet. The building is served by 347 off-street parking spaces, about 1.3 per room. The hotel is no longer operating after a dissolution of an agreement with Hilton and DoubleTree. My client is proposing to convert the building to multifamily dwellings. Because of the configuration of the hotel as an all-suite style facility, the conversion is actually pretty straightforward. In fact, there would be almost no perceivable change from the exterior and only modest interior renovations necessary, really upgrading each of those existing suites in terms of the kitchen facilities. But generally speaking, the space allocated to each suite would generally remain the same, with one exception. Our proposal here would result in 173 one-bedroom units, each approximately 600 square feet, kind of taking one former suite, but then 40 two-bedroom units, each approximately 1,200 square feet. So you can imagine basically taking 2 former rooms and combining them into a single suite for a total of 213 total units. 213.
173 plus 42?
Plus 40.
Oh, I thought you said 42. I'm sorry.
42. They did say 42.
Oh,
Representing-
42 bed. Gotcha.
And that's a valid point, Mr. Sander. There was a typo in my addendum to the application. The total number of proposed units is 213, which is a reduction from the suites hotel, which is at 253. Each unit would obviously be upgraded and renovated, and more full-service kitchens and appliances would be put in. But again, the way the building is structured, the existing suites will essentially remain intact, with the exception of those 2-bedroom units. The first floor amenity space will remain to provide amenity space for the residents, likely including things like fitness facilities, meeting or workspace, laundry facilities, and such. Back to the exhibits. Applicant's Exhibit A6 is a traffic analysis or trip generation analysis performed by Mr. Hammond. And finally, Exhibit A7, I included a series of cases addressing the issue of what constitutes a use of the same general character. I have no doubt you will receive excellent counsel from your solicitor, but I did include those for your reference. So unless the board has any initial questions for me, I'll call Mr. Hammond and we'll get to it.
I just saw an article recently where they did a state kind of conversion. There was 600 square feet, so like apartments you would rent in Brooklyn or something. Is that the kind of thing you're going for?
Mr. Ray is actually going to talk pretty extensively about the units, so.
600 square feet.
Correct. They are on the small, the one bedrooms are on the smaller side, certainly for what I think we have become accustomed to if you look at what's in the marketplace now. But as you'll hear from Mr. Ray, he believes that there is really a demand for something that's more affordable, and think that we can fill that demand with those one bedrooms.
I just had a quick question, if I may. You've attached some case law. Does any of that involve hotel turning into an apartment?
I could not find any cases that are directly on point where a hotel was converted under a provision saying same or similar use, but the case law that's in there, there's a variety of things in there. There's one that was I think it was a halfway house facility that was deemed to be same or similar to a residential use. There's actually a car wash case from Delaware County where it was the car wash was determined to be a use of the same character as those permitted, where you had convenience store and retail were permitted. And it's generally talking about that provision in a code and how an applicant is supposed to be entitled to the benefit of the doubt that to give them the greatest possible use of their property. But I could not find anything directly on point where a all-suites hotel was converted to multifamily. Okay. I'll have Mr. Hammond testify first.
Sure. Matthew Hammond, Hammond. I do.
Matt, you've already stated your name, so if you could add your business address for the record and with whom you're currently employed.
Sure. Business address is 1025 Andrew Drive, Suite 110, Westchester, Pennsylvania 19380, and currently employed by Traffic Planning and Design.
And in what capacity are you with TPD?
I am the Executive Vice President.
And you're a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been a practicing engineer?
I have been a practicing engineer for over 20 years.
And can you describe just very briefly for the board your engineering specialty?
Sure. So I oversee the private development side of the company, which is anything traffic related as a result of a proposed Wawa to a hotel to a shopping center to a residential development, industrial uses, and the like.
And Traffic Planning and Design is also contracted with a number of municipalities to act as a municipal engineer for traffic purposes, correct?
That is correct.
And have you previously appeared before zoning hearing boards and presented traffic engineering testimony?
I have.
And in those proceedings, were you offered and accepted as an expert in traffic engineering?
I was.
Unless the board has any additional questions for Mr. Hammond, I would like to offer him as an expert in traffic engineering.
Any questions for Mr. Hammond on his qualifications? He'll be accepted as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, could you just briefly describe for the board why you were retained in this matter?
Sure. I was retained to compare, from a traffic perspective, the existing use, which is an all-suites hotel, the proposed use, which is a conversion to an apartment, to apartment units.
And did you perform that task?
I did.
Did you prepare a report summarizing your analysis and conclusions?
I did.
And is that report what I have put into the exhibit packet as A6?
That is correct. Dated December 15th, 2025, titled 640 Fountain Road Hotel Conversion Trip Generation Comparison.
Matt, can you just very briefly describe the analysis that you performed and the conclusions that you reached?
Sure. So you will see in Exhibit A6 essentially a two-page analysis We compared, as I mentioned, the existing use of 253 all-suite units to the proposed 213 apartment units. The analysis that we performed and the data that we utilized, which is typical of the data that we would utilize if we're preparing a traffic study or any type of an analysis from a traffic perspective. What we wanted to look at was how much traffic would be generated by the 253 unit all suites hotel, and then compare that to the proposed 213 unit apartment building to determine if there were any traffic related impacts when comparing the two uses. You will see in Exhibit A6 on page 2, Table 2, there is a summary where we looked at the amount of traffic each use would generate over the course of a 24-hour period, a typical weekday, and then how much traffic the uses would generate during the AM and PM peak hours of a typical weekday. The reason we chose the peak hours, which again is typical of any traffic study, is to look at how much traffic would be generated by these uses during the peak. There's the highest volume of traffic on the surrounding roadway network. What you'll see from the analysis, and again from Table 2, is that over the course of a 24-hour period, the apartments would generate approximately 161 less trips than would an all-suites hotel. Now, for those of you that are familiar or not familiar with trips, we as traffic engineers look at how many trips uses generate to see the impact they have on the roadway. One vehicle entering is one trip. That same vehicle exiting is 2 trips. So over the course of a 24-hour period, you could say 161 trips equates to about 80 cars. Right? So 80 cars less over the course of a 24-hour period. During the AM peak hour, the apartments would generate 8 more trips than does the all-suites hotel. So about 4 more cars over a 1-hour period, so about 1 every 15 minutes. And then during the weekday PM peak hour, 6 less trips the apartments would generate when compared to the all-suites hotel. So essentially 1 trip every 10 minutes or 1 vehicle every 20 minutes. So in conclusion, as again, similar to the conclusion as shown on page 2, it's our opinion, or my opinion at least, that over the course of a day, there's going to be significantly less traffic generated by the proposed apartments than exist there today. But during the peak hours, it'll be very similar. As I'd mentioned, 8 trips more in the AM peak hour and 6 trips less in the PM peak hour.
Matt, I wanted to touch on a couple of quick things. In performing your analysis, I assume that you used industry standards to generate the approximations of the trips from the hotel use. You did not, since it's closed, you did not count the number of trips, correct?
That is correct. We use the industry standards, and if we were to be preparing a traffic study, we would utilize the data that's contained in the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. And we utilize the latest edition, which were released in September of 2025.
And same with the peak hours, choosing to not only analyze not only analyze the overall traffic generation of those 2 uses, but those peak hours. That's an industry accepted standard to measure those peak hours, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So from every perspective, the analysis you performed here is the same analysis that you would perform if you were preparing a broader traffic analysis for, say, a PennDOT highway occupancy permit, something like that.
That is correct.
Okay. And so, Matt, from a traffic perspective, would you say that the impacts of the proposed 213 multifamily dwelling units will be the same or even less of an impact than the prior 253 all-suites hotel?
Yes, that is correct.
And from a traffic impact perspective, would you say the character of the proposed use then is the same or similar to the prior hotel use?
Based on the analysis that was completed, yes.
Matt, in your experience, is there any reason to believe that other types of traffic for the proposed use would be significantly different, for example, trucks or so forth?
So there will be some slight differences between the existing use of the all-suites hotel and the proposed use of the apartment building. And that main difference would focus, as Rob mentioned, on trucks. Right now, the hotel has a loading dock and receives tractor-trailer deliveries to that loading dock, whereas an apartment building, you would likely not see tractor trailers accessing that building. But if the apartments were open and operating, you may see some more Amazon, UPS, FedEx type deliveries than you would as an all suites hotel. But likely would not see tractor trailers that you would see as a result of the hotel.
And from an operations standpoint, that loading facility would provide an opportunity for move-in and move-out locations for larger box trucks and things of that nature?
Correct, and I would suspect that based on the size of the units, the one bedrooms being 600 square feet and the two bedrooms being approximately 1,200 square feet, that you would see box trucks moving furniture in and out from these various units.
Matt, any reason to believe that the circulation patterns would be any different, or there would be any issues with ingress or egress to the site?
No, again, it's my understanding that there are no changes proposed to the exterior of the property. The circulation, as shown and as exists, would remain, as would the access to and from Fountain Road.
So, Matt, how about emergency vehicle perspective? Circulation patterns there for those would remain the same and unchanged?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all I have for Mr. Hammond with respect to traffic. If the board has any questions for Matt on traffic, you're welcome to ask them now, or if you have more general questions after Tony's testimony, we can answer them all kind of collectively. It's certainly the board's choice.
I just want to comment, I just think it makes sense that if you convert it, what you're saying now, traffic, I just think it is.
Yeah. Which, again, the analysis bears that out.
Tony, you want to join me?
My name is Anthony Ray, Anthony. Last name is Ray, just two letters, R-E. Thank you. Sure. I do.
Tony, can you provide your business address and how you are currently employed?
Yes, I'm the president of a company called Kingsbury Financial LP, which has...
Got to speak a little bit clearer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and slower than that. I missed that completely.
No worries. I'm the president of Kingsbury Financial LP, which
Kingsbury?
Kingsbury, Kingsbury. It's a real estate investment company, basically, and
Very
financial LP. And we source investments for sort of lovely people that probably look a lot like you. And on a nationwide basis, we own apartments and hotels from the west side of Seattle to the east coast of Florida. We're not a giant company, but we have a diverse footprint. And my office, our main mailing address location is 10645 North Tatum Boulevard, Phoenix, Arizona, 85028. And that's Suite 200.
Tony, if you can expand a little bit on that in terms of, give the board a little perspective in terms of the holdings of Kingsbury, how many hotels you currently own or operate, and how many rental units you may own or operate.
Sure.
Just a little bit more perspective.
So we have if you include the closed DoubleTree, it's about 500 hotel rooms between a property in Chandler, Arizona, a property at the Atlanta airport, and then this property here in Plymouth Meeting. And then we have 5 apartment communities that range in size from 134 to 560 units between Seattle, Denver, Phoenix, and Melbourne, Florida.
And the apartment units that you own, do you manage those internally, or do you hire management for those?
We hire a very professional third-party property manager.
And Tony, the entity KHPLY MTG LLC, that's an affiliated entity of Kingsbury Financial?
Yes.
And that entity is the owner of the property that we're talking about this evening?
That is correct.
All right. In your own words, if you can, please just describe the most recent use of the property and how it was used when you purchased it.
Yeah, so it was an all-suites, ideally extended stay hotel under the DoubleTree flag with Hilton.
And can you describe what your typical or targeted resident was, type of travel, length of stay, and those kinds of things?
I'd say there's probably a difference between what we thought we'd get and what actually showed up. But the goal with an extended stay property is largely Monday through Thursday. You have a business traveler that's in for a few days, and then over the weekend you have a sports group or something like that. And then our hotel was full service with meeting space and banquet rooms and facilities. So we'd hope to attract, a number of parties and weddings and corporate events, things like that.
And Tony, to that point, talk if you can a little bit about the historical occupancy rates that you saw with respect to the DoubleTree.
So on an annualized basis, it swung wildly. There were nights where we were full, but on an annualized basis, it never really broke 50%.
And what would
What was the percentage?
50.
50.
Yeah.
And from an industry perspective, what is a targeted occupancy rate and what is a profitable occupancy rate, if you can?
The simplest answer would be about 80. Certain markets are going to run higher. Midtown Manhattan's going to run a lot higher than that, right? Western Pennsylvania off a turnpike may run somewhat lower than that, but roughly about 80% be what you're looking for.
Your targeted occupancy rates had been 80%, but you had never annualized over 50%
No.
with this location.
Yeah.
And Tony, in addition to the 253 guest rooms, there were other facilities in the DoubleTree. You mentioned banquet space and so forth. Can you just describe that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an indoor pool, a fitness center, guest laundry, several meeting and banquet rooms, and a food service facility that never operated as an external restaurant. But we were told by a lovely woman who worked for us that it was the place to come for Saturday night prime rib dinner in Plymouth meeting before P.F. Chang and everybody else showed up at the mall. So,
and so with the restaurant space, banquet space, things of that nature, in addition to the guests and their cars and so forth, you might have other people that were coming and going from the hotel that weren't necessarily
Yes.
overnight guests.
Mhm.
Okay. And with respect to the guests, were there ever limitations on the length of stays, number of guests in the rooms, things of that nature?
we did have limitations, but it sort of gets into the sausage of running a hotel. Hilton's website would only allow you to book for 7 days, but other avenues would allow you to book for longer. I think we had a max occupancy of 6 in our 2-bed, our double queen plus fold-out couch units, and that would be significantly restrained in a multifamily situation.
So although they were all suites units, it wasn't necessarily a single business traveler taking up a lot of space, that oftentimes rooms were rented to multiple people at
Sure.
one point in time.
And you do your best to control it, but you never know how many people are going to get snuck in the back door. So.
And you mentioned also that you might have sports groups, so I assume that sometimes on weekends you're having full families travel
Yes.
and occupying a suite.
Yep.
So it would not be uncommon in those rooms to have more than one person in.
Of course,
any
yeah.
suite. Okay. So if you can, in addition to obviously the occupancy, if you can just describe a bit for the board the challenges that you have faced since owning this facility.
I'd say it on an annualized basis, it was never profitable. I won't quote the numbers that we were able to learn from our near-in competitors, but they're struggling as well, and simply the market just has too many keys, given how little occupancy there is in the office space in the area. It's sort of the world has changed with remote work and AI and everything else that's coming at us. So,
And for this style of hotel, would you say that is certainly a key contributor, the fact that Many business travelers now, if they would have had an education class or, onboarding of employees, they can now do that remotely as opposed to
Of course.
traveling and spending a week on
Yeah.
site.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Right now, the hotel is not operating, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And the affiliation with DoubleTree has been terminated? Okay. And could you describe for the board what you propose to do with the facility?
So we would like to convert it to a multifamily use, which would entail basically a similar or potentially smaller number of people staying there on a longer time frame than they would in a hotel. There will be some what we call reprogramming of the common area spaces. We just this morning were there with our Hopeful Property Management Company, and they'd love to see us put a golf simulator in one of the meeting rooms. So we may do that, but as far as conversion to the actual units goes, they're going to be in the 600 square foot one bedrooms. They're efficient units, so they'll have an efficient kitchenette. And then in the combined two bedroom units, we'll be taking down a portion of a non-load bearing wall and putting in a slightly larger kitchen. Because the suites are all shotgun style, if you know what I'm saying by that. Is there an exhibit to the floor plan?
I don't believe we have a
Okay.
floor plan included, so if you can describe that for the board.
So as you walk into a suite, there's a sort of a family room, and then there's a little kitchenette and a closet and a bathroom, and then through that there's a bedroom. And so the way our building's laid out, it's load-bearing wall, suite, non-load-bearing wall, suite, load-bearing wall. And so it's very easy to open up a big hole in between between two units. So there'd be room in the two bedrooms to do an L-shaped kitchen with a little island, and then have the other side be where the couch and the TV and all that go.
I had referenced to the board that the expectation is that the one bedrooms are about 600 square feet, the two bedrooms are about 1,200 square feet. Total number of units was 173 one bedrooms and 42 bedrooms. Describe what you see as the market for these units.
Sure. Well, as we all know, there's an affordability crisis, and we have as someone who I don't get too wonky on the industry, but I see it as a blessing because it costs $350,000 a unit to build a new apartment complex today, or more. And what do you have to rent? A one bedroom or a two bedroom to pay that freight? So we have the opportunity to come in, and because our units are cozy, they don't have a private balcony, they have access off an interior atrium instead of a hallway. There's sort of a limitation on how much we can charge in rent that's sort of nascent to the infrastructure of the building. But at the same time, and the quote really landed earlier, so I'll try it again here. In a former life, I worked at Starbucks as a barista when I was a younger guy, and they always taught us that Starbucks is meant to be an affordable luxury. And that's really sort of what we're aiming for here, is that it's going to be attractive, it's going to be well-maintained, the finishes are going to be very nice, but at the same time, it's going to be attainable and approachable by nurses, teachers, executive assistants, young professionals, policemen, firemen, folks transitioning from their own home into that bridge between going to 55 plus or assisted living. So it's special that, given what we paid for the building, which was sort of twice foreclosed before we bought it, we're able to do it. And my investors will still be very happy with the result, and we'll be able to, I think, be a big value add to the community. And especially with what we hear is potentially going on neighboring parcels at the mall and on either side of us.
Tony, do you think that these are generally the types of units that are going to be attractive to families?
Probably less so families, maybe single parent type situations. That they're not overwhelmingly spacious. There's no private outdoor space. They don't read they read like a more executive apartment than they do a garden style apartment that would be more family friendly. We're certainly going to welcome everybody that qualifies. So we'll see who comes in, but at the same time we don't see them as necessarily being a family's first choice.
I know from our conversations that you know a lot of this data, so let's share a little bit of it.
Sure.
Generally speaking, you talked about how somewhat unaffordable apartments are these days, particularly new construction apartments. Compare what you are proposing here to what's in the market now in terms of maybe rental rates and those kinds of
Sure.
things.
Well, we looked at, we toured a couple of properties in the market that would be in sort of by a quality perspective comparable, but their units are a little larger and they are purpose-built apartments versus an adaptive reuse. And we were seeing one-bedrooms in the 1800s and up and two-bedrooms in the high 2000s and into the 3000s.
And by comparison, what are you expecting here for one-bedrooms and two-bedrooms?
We're proposing an average of $1,585 for one-bedrooms and then about $2,300 for two-bedrooms.
And you started to say people that qualify, that leads me into asking, discuss if you can a little bit the difference between the control you may have over tenants in a multifamily versus what happens in a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, in a struggling hotel, you have your reservations open on all kinds of price lines and discount OTAs, which is online travel agency. That's the acronym, and you never know who's going to show up. Whereas we believe that we'll have a lot of demand because of the cost of our units, and as a result, we'll be able to curate the community with people who qualify and have a good history of paying the rent on time and being good community members at previous communities that they've lived in. But if you're going to let a tenant in for a year, they do go through credit and background check and calling references and such things.
So for a hotel, as long as somebody probably has a driver's license and a credit card that match, generally speaking, that's the extent that you're getting in terms of vetting the quality of that person and what they may or may not do to your hotel room, who they may or may not be. But with respect to signing an annual lease, you feel like you have a better opportunity to vet the quality of that person, and they're more vested in maintaining their apartment and maintaining the facilities.
Yeah, and good relationships with their neighbors.
To that point, will there be on-site management for this facility?
Yes.
And what are your plans? You mentioned the golf simulator, but what are your plans generally for that first floor common amenity space?
Well, we will close off the dining area for now and see what the future holds for that. We've thought of potentially leasing it to a ghost kitchen company, which does just delivery food. It's sort of a new approach to that, but the big ballroom will become a storage lockers. The smaller ballroom will be the new fitness center. We'll expand the deck around the pool area and build a really nice guest laundry at the back. Our two-bedroom units will have an all-in-one washer-dryer. And our one-bedroom units, there's just not space to put in a washer-dryer. So we'll have a really nice laundry room there with a dog wash. And then we have two meeting rooms. So one is likely to now be a golf simulator and one will be a theater. We'll be decommissioning the bar. There's a bar in the atrium, so that will no longer serve alcohol, but it could be a place where we'll set up our tenant coffee machines, and certainly if a tenant wants to have a gathering and bring their own bottle of wine down, they'd be welcome to, and things like that. Trying to think my way around the building with what we're looking at and all this stuff, but generally that's. How do we adapt what we've got without reinventing the wheel to provide a great area? Oh, and we have an upper space, so I'm particularly excited about an upper space above our ballroom. It's an upper atrium area, and it's surrounded by planters, and it has a bar. We'll decommission the bar and shrink the bar back, and then we're going to take all of the carpet area and put in green carpet that looks like grass, and we'll do Edison string lights and some nice patio seating groups so people can have kind of an indoor garden party as a nice gathering place.
So Tony, as you're aware, we've requested a special exception under a provision of the code that provides that any use that is of the same or similar character to an otherwise permitted use I had Matt speak to a comparison about the multifamily and the hotel comparing traffic impacts. One question that had come up previously was, would there be any differentiation in impacts to things like water and sewer? To the extent you can you speak to that? Would you feel that there was any greater impact to water and sewer needs for this use?
Yeah, I would argue it's similar, and that certainly in certain periods, sort of in peak capacity moments in the hotel, it was probably using a lot more water and a lot more sewer capacity when you have, 1,500 people in the building because there are parties and it's a full night. But I don't think there's any. We sort of looked for some good data on it. There's not really good data to support that, either way. But ultimately, we're talking about 2 people in a max in a 1-bedroom unit, and maybe 4 people max in a 2-bedroom unit, and that's that's going to be, even at reduced occupancy rates of the hotel on an annualized basis, it's going to be very similar to what it was as a hotel. So.
And Tony, if you can, from a community impact standpoint, how do you think the 2 uses compare?
Sure.
Do you believe that there would be a greater need for services such as police, ambulance, or fire from the multifamily building compared to the hotel? If you can, talk about that.
Well, we all saw the incident at the hotel in the news with the gentleman who went crazy, and I'll leave that where it is. But again, fundamentally, anywhere that using it as an apartment complex is different under these circumstances than using it as a hotel is an advantage to the community. It's an improvement. It's a extended, fundamentally it's an extended length of stay. If it were to stay a hotel, half of the rooms would be getting the same kitchens we're going to put in as apartments, because half of the hotel would become a Town Place Suites and the other half would become a Fairfield Inn and Suites. Ultimately, we still think there's an oversupply problem in hotel rooms in Plymouth Meeting, and that's unlikely to change. And so it would likely suffer this, a similar situation as the DoubleTree did. But again, it's really just a length of stay issue versus. One versus the other, and we'll be able, again, to curate the community that's in there and give them a great place to live. So,
Tony, I think this is what I heard you say, and I want to make sure I get it right. So I think you just stated that, generally speaking, you do believe the uses are same or similar, mm-hmm. but to the extent there are differences, you think that the differences are positive differences.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, based on your experience, do you believe, factoring in all those things that we have discussed, that the use of the property for multifamilies should qualify as the same general character as an extended stay all suites hotel?
Of course. Yeah.
That's all the testimony I have for Tony. I'm sure the board has some questions for us.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, we start with questions. Ms. Bramblett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few questions. One is, you're going for a special exception saying that a hotel's like an apartment, but under the definitions in our ordinance, there's separate definitions. Apartments are different than hotels, and a office complex does not list apartments as one of the uses. So I'm just wondering how it becomes a special exception when there are 2 different definitions in the code.
And Ms. Bramlett, I'm happy to address that more thoroughly with some comments at the end. But what I do want to point out is that the law provides that where there's a provision that says any use of the same or similar character to a permitted use, it's specifically in the cases that I've provided to you, the word similar is what is critical to that terminology in the code. It does not have to be identical. And so you can have multiple defined uses in a code, but one use can still be considered to be similar to an otherwise permitted use. So we're not saying that an apartment, a multifamily dwelling, is identical to a hotel use, but it is of the same or similar character to a otherwise permitted use. Here, that other use is the all suites extended stay hotel. And so I understand that when the first word says the same, and they don't have to be the same according to the law when you have the provision that we have here, same or similar in character. And that's why the aspects of the impacts, we believe, are what are truly important. And when you get into the case law that I shared with you, that's how the courts have looked at it. Are the impacts of those two uses similar in nature such that one should be allowed under that provision? So we're not trying to say that they are identical. They're not. They're two different uses. But under this provision, they merely need to be similar in character.
One's residential and one's commercial. I mean, look, I'm new to this, so I apologize. I was on council, but, you know.
I would submit to you that particularly with an all-suites extended stay hotel, that is nearly residential in character.
Yes.
People are staying for extended periods of time. They're making it a dwelling for a week, or what have you. It is not the same as just jumping off the turnpike, spending one night, continuing down the turnpike. That's not how this use operated. So yes, there is a difference between somebody that might have stayed for a week, or I'm sure there were times people were staying multiple weeks,
Sure.
And somebody signing a one-year lease. But again, the case law talks about the character, the impact of those uses on the community, and if those are same or similar.
And again, I like the affordability issue. We certainly lack affordable housing in Plymouth. That's a good thing. Do you anticipate that these will be one-year leases? They won't be like 3-month and 6-month?
Yes. Yeah, 1 year and longer. And our experience in the business, for what it's worth, is we like to provide a community that people like to live in for a long time. It makes good business sense, if nothing else, just to take that side of it. It costs money to turn over a unit. It costs money to remarket a unit. It costs money to have a unit sit empty and when you're not collecting rent. So the real task is to, create a community people want to stay in, and then, if rents increase, you don't really push so hard as everybody else would to make sure that your tenant wants to stay. The average in most of our apartment communities, the average turnover is like 30% a year instead of 60 or other numbers that would be in the industry.
Having a hard time wrapping my head around it, but I'll think on it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Ms. Barron. Look, Mr. Higgins.
I'll defer to my colleague from the road. He's scribbling.
Thanks, Mr. Higgins.
Sure, more questions.
You stated that the smaller unit was 600 feet
Mhm.
and the larger unit was 1,200 feet, and that they'll be restricted to 2 occupants in the 600 feet, 4 occupants in the 1,200 feet. How will you do that?
What's in the lease?
We've seen instances where a townhome was for 4
Yeah, I mean, the difference between an individual townhome that someone rents versus a property, sort of an institutional grade property like this, where you have full-time on-site management that's walking the building and curating and cleaning up the halls and checking on everybody. It's much easier to patrol that, and that's a big, that's. From my side of the business, a tenant can do an awful lot more damage to your property than you collect in rent from them. So you have to be really mindful and on top of how things are going under your roof.
You stated that water and sewer would not be different from one used together.
To my knowledge, I don't think they would be materially different.
You already stated that you did not have full occupancy, that in general occupancy is 50%. So by default, that would be an increase in water and sewer?
Likely less bodies in the building. The sewer, because of the occupancy, limits on multi versus and decreased unit count. But also the building was built to accommodate. We have 4-inch drain lines on each individual stack of rooms. It was built to process an awful lot of water and sewer. And certainly at peak times when the hotel is full and there are parties going on and things like that, which is where you really worry about a municipal water and sewer system, as if it gets hammered, in a short period of time and overwhelmed, and you have a backup or something like that. Especially in weather like we've got right now, where you could have pipes freeze and things like that.
You'll also be having people doing laundry, showering, potentially multiple times a day, depending upon what they do for a living, whether they're working 1 or 2 jobs.
Mhm.
You've also stated that it's going to be more single parent, but we know for a fact that people are interested in coming to Plymouth, coming to White Marsh, coming to Plymouth, and being part of Plymouth School District. In some cases, with whatever it takes to get a child
I see.
a better school district. And those implications, I don't think have been addressed. I think we need more conversation with the school district to make those determinations. We've seen that with Park. And we've also seen with Park the traffic. I think the standard traffic model did not do Park justice, as we've seen on the roads and with the impacts during rush hour. Park also fronts on 2 roads. This property also fronts on 2 roads. Fountain fronts on Hickory and Walton. You could argue that you can sneak out to Germantown, but it's still going through Hickory and Walton for all effective purposes. I think the traffic does not do that situation justice. Again, you don't know what shift people are working, first, second, third. You don't know what the volume is. You don't know if there's a student driver. You don't know if it's a situation for a college where students living with a parent in the year of the case you're presenting, or possibly both parents, and all parties are working. So I don't feel this is a solid plan. I have to agree with Mrs. Bramlett that I don't understand the presentation of special exception here. That argument seems to state that all apartments are hotels and all hotels are apartments, which I firmly disagree with. So, if there's any additional proof or any additional submission there, because what you submitted in 7 years, my understanding, this is the first time that's been submitted to this group tonight?
The case law, yes.
Yes, so there's no time for us to review it, there's no time for us to go through it, it's been presented in a lump, and we can't move forward with that tonight. So, following on to, I don't think this has been presented as something this board could move on as submitted. Further, I'd like to mention what's going on in the region this year. It's already been stated, there's not enough hotel rooms in this region for everything that's going on. America's 250th, including Wawa Open America, FIFA World Cup, NCAA, March Madness, Major League Baseball, All-Star Game, as well as the PGA Championship, which those of us in the area who were here last year saw what that did to the area. So, stating that this can only be moved to apartments, I don't think is appropriate. It sounds like this is not functional as an extended stay based on the 50% occupancy, but that's my opinion.
Mr. Frangioso, if I can, we appreciate your comments, and I will talk to my client in a moment. It may make sense that we provide more information. Among that information, I would like to address Park. Park is a much different project and a much different offering than what is being offered here. Certainly in terms of the size of those units and the composition of those units. I don't believe, given the number of 2-bedroom units, and I believe Park may even have some 3-bedroom units. I was involved in Park when it was approved. hard to believe how long ago Park was approved. And so it is a much different offering than what you have here. I know that the expectation had been that Park was going to have very little impact to school district, and it has turned out to have more than expected. I think that's a testament, as you said, to Colonial School District, Plymouth White Marsh, and people wanting to be in Plymouth. But a much different product being offered at Park than what is being offered here. And I'll be happy to provide some more color to that by going back to my notes in terms of the numbers that are at Park. So I think from a school impact standpoint, it is different than what you had at Park. And I do agree with your statement. Not every hotel is akin to an apartment. Not every apartment is akin to a hotel. And I think through Tony's testimony, what we have been trying to present to you is we're starting from a different baseline than many hotels. The way this building is situated, being an all-suite style extended stay hotel, makes it much more akin to an apartment than would a normal hotel room. So I agree with that comment, and we're happy to flesh that out a little bit more for you. From a school district standpoint, we're happy to talk to the school district and get a sense from them of what their analysis may conclude that 213 units, 173 of which are one bedrooms at 600 square feet. I'm sure they've got all the data as to what they would expect the total number of kids coming from that type of facility would be. We're happy to flesh that out because it's relevant for this consideration. So if I may, I'm not pushing on it. I just want to try and get any other feedback we do have and other questions we have from the board, and then we'll spend some time.
Okay.
I mean, you've sort of preemptively answered generally the questions that I had, but a lot of my concerns are in line with Mr. Frangiosa's. A lot of this ties the same general character, but the condition of a hotel, apartment versus hotel, but the conditions of occupancy do seem to be different. It's permanent in the case of an apartment versus transitory in the case of a hotel, and more sustained use, I guess more intensive sustained use of resources like utilities. And so I would argue that the permanent residence would be more intensive, even though there might be parties on weekends and things like that. I would tend to think that during the week in a hotel you would have more staid business travelers, who weren't really doing as much, not doing as many routine things with utilities in the course of a day. Using bathrooms, using laundry facilities and so on. One question is: has anyone expressed any other party expressed interest in purchasing the property from KH and using it as a hotel?
That's a good segue to. We have had preliminary meetings with the owner of the remainder of the campus. The remainder of the Plymouth Meeting Executive Campus is owned by a joint venture between known entities. I don't think it merits mentioning who they are, but known entities to this municipality, property owners elsewhere in this township. And we have had preliminary meetings with them. And I know they, in turn, have had meetings with the township staff and or members of council about their plans generally for the Plymouth Meeting Executive Campus. And so they have welcomed us. They have no opposition to what we are proposing here. They think it would be a wonderful addition to what they are looking to do campus-wide. They've asked us to participate with them in more of a master plan of that entire executive campus. We had that kickoff meeting with them, and we're looking forward to having further meetings with them. So we believe that multifamily is going to be a critical component of this entire campus. They have expressed interest, at least on some level, of acquiring this, but for the exact same reason, to make it part of the campus as a multifamily component, not as a hotel component. There is an existing hotel that I believe is for sale in the up Fountain Road, and they have some ideas. We're looking at seeing what those ideas are, because you know that campus has a number of very large office spaces, much of which is vacant. It is really a sea of asphalt up there. The building closest to Walton is parked at 9 spaces per 1,000 square feet because it was a call center at one point in time. I mean, there's just a sea of asphalt. There's a lot that could be done for this campus, and we are just one component of that. I don't believe that the interest, either for my clients for long-term, and they are hotel operators, so if there's a hotel opportunity, they may pursue it, but this component is unlikely to be the hotel component of that overall campus. That's the best way I can put it for you. If you can we take about a 5-minute break and then come back? I just want to speak to my client about the questions that Mr. Frangiosa had.
Yeah. I will say I echo Mr. Frangiosa's comment that I think the evidence I've seen for assertions about usage, impact on utility usage, and so on, it's been kind of thin. So I would prefer. I'd like to see some additional evidence, empirical evidence, if it were available, to support your contentions. That's it. Thank you.
Is that okay, Mr. Chairman? Take a 5-minute break?
Yes, absolutely.
Want to go into executive session?
Yeah, we should.
Well, we should probably wait until take 5, let them talk, they'll come back.
Thank you. We're back in session. Thank you.
So if the board would permit me, I'd like to make a request. If the board would just allow me 2-3 minutes, I'd like to try and summarize what I believe the law to be with respect to uses of the same general character. And then I would ask that the board allow us to continue the hearing to next month. And in the meantime, as Mr. Frangiosa pointed out, give you time to digest some of the information that we did provide, give us time to go back and pull some additional data and come back a month from now, put some additional testimony into the record with the board now, hopefully having had an opportunity to speak to your solicitor about the law and read what we put into the record. If that would be acceptable to the board, we'd like to do that. Great. So with that, I know that at the outset I talked about the special exception standard, and really the special exception standard is bizarre in this instance because there are no objective criteria. But to Mr. Frangiosa's point, I do think it is worth pointing out again that the law doesn't require us to demonstrate that this can't be a hotel. That would be a variance standard where you're trying to you're requesting a use variance, a deviation, saying we can't put it to any use that the code permits, and therefore we're asking for a different use. Under the special exception provision of this code, 3200F, there's no requirement to say it can't be a hotel. It simply says that you are permitted any use of the same or similar general character to a permitted use, regardless of whether or not you could put it to a hotel. I just want that to be clear because we're not bound. We don't have the burden to demonstrate it can't be a hotel. It might be a hotel again someday. Who knows? But what the ordinance does provide is that we can make a use of the same or similar character. And to that point, and I know you'll have an opportunity to look at the cases that I did provide to you, a use of the same general character, the courts of this Commonwealth have held that that's a determination for you to make as a matter of law. And they have held that where an ordinance does permit a use of the same general character, the ordinance cannot be held to require that the proposed use have the same or identical character, but only that it have similarity to other permitted uses. So again, whether it is the traffic that Mr. Hammond testified to, he testified to the similar nature, or impacts to utilities, they don't have to be identical, but have to be of the same general character. And I think when we came here, when we filed this, again, our comparison was the all suites extended stay hotel to multifamily. And so to me, certainly from an impact standpoint, as I think you heard some tonight and will present additional, the difference really only becomes a length of stay. And as Mr. Ray testified to the extent there are differences in impacts, we believe those to be beneficial impacts to the community. So I think when you look at the case law, you will see more how the courts have analyzed that legal question of what constitutes same or similar. I'd ask you to take a look at that, and obviously you have the opportunity to rely on the knowledge of Mr. Sander to understand that a little bit more fully. You'll see, as I said, there's a case in there where a car wash was determined to be same or similar to a retail use, that a privately operated gas production facility was the same as a public utility, and then, as I mentioned, that a halfway house was similar to a medical office use. So you can start to get a perspective how the courts have decided what is of a same general character compared to really the difference in these two uses. So hopefully you keep that in mind, take a look at that, and we will come back next month and answer any additional questions you have and hopefully have some additional evidence to put into the record.
I think the key issue here is the question, the legal niceties, and I don't use that term pejoratively, of special exception aside. People want to understand what is the impact on the community, potential impact on the community of granting that. We haven't seen a great deal of empirical evidence, other than the traffic study, which would help to shape, affect that decision, affect our understanding.
And I am, obviously, I spend a lot of time in Plymouth Township. I spend a lot of time in front of this board and in front of council, and I am acutely aware of kind of what's going on. And I understand that this provision has unfortunately been the subject of other hearings. So we will do our best to put in front of you the evidence that we believe not only supports our request, but differentiates us from some of the other instances that this provision has been used. So we'll do our best to put that evidence on the record.
Okay. For the board to entertain a motion to continue this matter until, we'll get the date out for you, February 16th, 2026 at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Plymouth Township building.
Joel, just while we're here, that evening doesn't happen to be the same evening as one of those other matters might be scheduled for, does it?
President's Day.
Oh, perfect, another holiday.
Yes.
To be honest, I don't think we've received any applications yet for February.
Excellent. Probably happened already.
Yeah, it was this past Friday. Yeah.
Do we have a motion to continue until February 16th? Thank you, Mr. Higgins. A second?
Second.
Take a roll call vote. Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
In favor. And the chair votes in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
And Mr. Chair, are we off the record?
Yeah, why don't we, you want to...
Pending no further business, meeting is adjourned.